Hey guys, Victor here coming at you again with another deck profile, and today's focus is going to be on Fire Kings. Now you may be asking, Victor, what makes your Fire King so different compared to everyone else's? Because let's face it, a lot of the times, a lot of Fire King lists are going to be super cookie cutter and be playing the exact same list, but I have some really cool tech choices that I think really do help out the deck, at least until Phantom Nightmare comes out. So, with that out of the way, let's just jump straight into the deck profile. Now, as always, we're going to be starting off with the monster lineup, but we're not going to be going too into detail with everything just because, like I said, you guys have probably seen a million of these deck profiles before, so it's not like it's going to be anything revolutionary when it comes to the monster lineup. And as a result, we're going to be playing 3 Fire King High Avatar Kirin. When this card is destroyed, it's a free reborn and it's a free pop for any card on the field, which is honestly phenomenal because there aren't really a lot of cards that help you build your board and then in addition to that help you break your opponent's board. But yeah, it's literally free reborn for any Fire King monster except itself. Then we play 2 Sacred Fire Garunix. When this card's no more special summoned, it basically reads destroy any Fire King card from your hand, field, or deck. But it's actually just, it's a lot more generic than that. As long as it's a fire and it's a beast, wing beast, or beast warrior, things of that nature, you can destroy it, which is pretty cool because it allows you to mix these cards with like other decks too, like Tri-Brigade, for example, right? Those cards are all basically fitting this description and they're fire monsters for the most part, or at least the important ones are, which means that you can do some really cool variations, but we're not doing that. But yeah, so 2 Garunix, then you're going to be playing 3 Legendary Fire King Ponix. Card's really good. It's going to be your searcher for your spells and traps. Not much to say. It's good. It's free recursion for itself when it's destroyed during the next standby phase. Yeah, card's good. And then we're going to be playing 3 Fire King Avatar Arvata. This is going to be your main monster negate to help you prevent yourself getting hit by, multiple hand traps and stuff like that. Or even when it's not being used for that. Just being able to have a free negate for any monster effect is honestly invaluable. So yeah, really good card. Then we're playing 1 Fire King Avatar Barong. When this card's destroyed during the next standby phase, you can basically add any Fire King monster. It's okay. It's a little slow, but it's honestly fine for the way that the deck wants to play because the way that I have it built, it's more like mid-range or control. You got to think of it as a kind of like a math mech deck, honestly. So we play like a bunch of hand traps, and then we use our main engine to set up our plays for the next turn. We use our hand traps to prevent our opponent from playing, and then when we go back to our turn, thanks to cards like Barong, we're going to be able to OTK them a lot more easily. So yeah, you don't need more than one. And then I don't play the other level 4 guy just because I don't think he's very good. The one that negates spells and traps. But if you want to play him, that's perfectly fine as well. He's a free extender, 1800 body. He's okay, but he's just not really what I'm trying to accomplish with this deck. Then that's it for the Fire King monsters, and then we just play a bunch of hand traps. So we're playing 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Nibiru, 2 Effect Veilers, and 2 Droll and Lockbirds. Not much to say. They pretty much help you cover as many matchups as possible, so pretty solid. And then for the final monster, we are playing the 1 Diabellestar the Black Witch. So we are playing the Wanted engine in this deck just because it does help you get to Ponix a lot more easily, and it just has a lot of really good synergy. So with that, that's the monster lineup, and now we can move on to the spell and trap portion of the deck. Now for the spell and trap lineup, we're going to be starting off with 3 Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils and 1 Original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye. Now, as you may have noticed, we're not playing any of the Snake Eyes monsters, and that's just because I think they're incredibly underwhelming for now. Once Phantom Nightmare rolls around, then they're going to be really good. But yeah, it's just like a lot of really greedy plays that don't really help you advance your game all that much. And if anything, they just leave you a lot more vulnerable because you invest way more resources and you tend to brick a lot more, especially with the giant snake, right? Because let's face it, when you play one card like that, you will be drawing it and then you can't do anything with it and you're going to feel sad. Just being able to go Snake Eye into Ponix is honestly more than enough to be able to win the game a majority of the time. So that's why we do that. And yeah, that's it for the wanted stuff. Next, we're going to be playing 3 Super Polymerization. Now, this may seem weird, but Super Poly is honestly like a really good card in this deck just because from what I've been playing it, you honestly don't really even go into your extra deck all that often. So as a result, I was looking for cards to basically help us going second. And Super Poly is one of the best ones. And lo and behold, one of the decks at the recent European YCS in top 32 or top 16, I believe, was playing 3 Super Polymerizations. And you know, that's pretty much all I needed to confirm that this card is actually really solid in this deck, just because, like I said, you don't need your extra deck a lot of the time. This deck does struggle going second, and this card can pretty much break any board. There are some decks that are just really resilient to it, so as a result, we do side cards like Forbidden Droplet and just replace it with Super Poly, because those are typically, if Droplet is good, Super Poly is bad, and then vice versa. So yeah, but for now, I really enjoy Super Poly in this deck. Then we have our Fire King spells and traps. You play the 2 Fire King Sanctuary, the 2 Fire King Island, and 1 Fire King Skyburn. You don't really need any more than that. Sure, Fire King Sanctuary is a really big consistency card because, and you can make like a justification for playing it at 3 just because it does get you access to Fire King Island, but it's honestly fine. You have plenty of ways to search it, and the deck is pretty consistent, or at least grindy enough to get to the point where you will have access to one of these cards eventually pretty quickly. Then for the real spice, we're going to be playing 3 Crossout Designator and 1 Call by the Grave. So this deck 100% folds to cards like hand traps, and as a result, I opted to try and play 3 Crossout Designator just because it's really effective in a deck like this, because we have so many hand traps to choose from in a variety, right? We have Veilers, we have Nibs, we have Drolls, we have Ash. We play 2 Imperm, spoiler, it's the last card in the deck, double Imperm. We can pretty much call so many things like that just completely end our turn, because if you get hit by Ash Blossom at all in this deck on your Fire King Island, you can just straight up lose the game right then and there. So I wanted something that can basically help give us the resiliency needed to be able to fight back and just win those unwinnable matchups. And 3 Crossouts with the Call by the Grave is usually more than enough to actually help ensure that we can actually play the game. So yeah, I really enjoy these cards in this deck. I think they're phenomenal. I don't know if we're still going to be playing them post Phantom Nightmare, but for now, they're definitely something that I really enjoy in this Fire King deck. And then, like I said, we play 2 Imperms just to round out the spell and trap card lineup, 40 cards like always, and now we can finally move on to the extra deck portion. Now, when it comes to the extra deck, like I said earlier, you don't really use it all that much, but it's still very important just to be able to help you out of those grind game situations, or deal with oppressive boards, or help you get more resources back into your hand, and just, you know, things of that nature. So as a result, we're going to be starting off with the Exceed monsters, and the first one we're playing is Super Starslayer Ty-phon. This is basically just for those super wombo combo heavy decks that, you know, just get really oppressive really fast, such as like Vanadium, right? Which have a bunch of 3,000 plus attack point monsters, and it just gets really annoying, especially when you don't have a Super Poly. So this is going to be your next best thing. Then for the only other Exceed monster, we're playing the Garunix Eternity Exceed monster. It doesn't really come up, but it's basically a free board wipe when your opponent special summons, as long as you have 2 level 8s. And it can destroy spells and traps, so it does have utility in that way. But that's it for the Exceed monsters. I don't think you need anything else. Like, you don't need Zeus, you don't need Dingirsu, you don't need any of that. These are more than enough to get your game plan accomplished. Next, we're going to be talking about the Super Poly targets, though. So we have the 1 Garura, Wings of Resonant Life, and the 1 Mudragon of the Swamp. Pretty straightforward. These are probably the 2 best Super Poly targets in the game. And then to go with that, we're going to be playing the 1 Dragon Knight Draco equeste. So this is just for those super heavy combo decks like I mentioned earlier, and that I tend to mention a lot on this channel, like Vanadium, like not Dragon Turbo, but again, I guess like even like Dragon Link to an extent sometimes, right? Because they can end on Baron and Dispatter, or you have like basically Baron plus any ignorant dragon like Crimson Dragon, Calamity's Turbo, all things of that nature. This card plus Super Poly is able to beat those boards every time. So yeah, that's how we play it. And because let's face it, if you go second against that type of deck, you're just not winning. And then that's it for the fusion monsters. And then after that, we just play a bunch of link monsters. So we're going to be playing 1 Dharc and 1 Hiita. Pretty straightforward. You can make these really easily because you do play Dharc and Fires. And you're probably going to be playing a lot of mirror matches. So something like Hiita is going to be really invaluable, and even then, like, you can bring back Ash Blossom, right? So you know, just really good utility cards. Then you play a couple Link 1s and Relinquished Anima to help you break your opponent's board, and 1 Link Karibo just because it's a good level 1 that can bring itself back by tributing Ponix. It won't trigger your Ponix's destruction effect to come back to your hand during the next standby phase, but it's honestly fine. And then for a couple other level 2s, we're going to be playing the 1 Sunlight Wolf. So, you know, it gets back any fire monster. So you can add back your Ashes, you can add back your any Fire King card, whether it's like Ponixes that you weren't able to add back to the grave, your Garunixes, whatever. Card just really good at helping you get back your resources. And then in addition to that, it does help you link climb into this, which is Decode Tucker Heat Soul. So you know how I mentioned this deck is like Math Mac? this is another similarity that it has, right? So this is going to be one of your main end board cards, typically, just because it'll help you draw into your hand traps during your turn, and then once again during your opponent's turn, and it's just a very difficult card to out in general. So yeah, really good card at helping you gain your resources back. The materials that you need are going to be like 2 Cybers monsters, but that's what we played the Link Creed before as well, right? So yeah, card really good in this deck. Then you're playing the 1 IP Masquerena. You don't make it too often, but the situations do come up sometimes where you don't have the resources to go into Heat Soul, but you do have 3 monsters on the field, so you just make this instead. And then what you're typically making off of that is SP Little Knight. Card's broken. What can I say? If you don't have one, get one. And then we're also be playing 1 Celine. And when you see Celine, that typically means you're going to be playing Access Code Talker. So with that, that's the Fire King deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!